This is Strange New Trek, a podcast about the life and times of Captain Christopher Pike. And now your hosts. Canon is only important to certain people because they have to cling to their knowledge of the minutiae. Open your mind, be a Star Trek fan, and open your mind and say, where does Star Trek want to take me now? Leonard Nimoy, 2008. Hello everybody, I am your host, Jeremy Vilmer. Joining us this week is my number one dog, Commander Dog, and our chief engineer, Chris Ninian Singh. What's happening, Chris?
Hey, what's up?
So, what I wanted to do this week was kind of talk about where Strange New World fits into the Star Trek canon or timeline. I see comments all the time where they're like, not sure where it is in relationship to the Cage or Captain Kirk taking over or the Kelvin timeline. So I figured we'll kind of dig into that a little bit today and talk about that.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Any notes or anything before we get started here?
Oh, no. I think we have, over the course of the last 22 episodes, and it feels weird even saying 22 episodes, we have talked a lot about, and, you know, most of it has ended up on the cutting room floor, but we have talked a lot about canon and how Strange New Worlds has both stuck to it and not stuck to it, this and that. So I think this is a good place to put all these thoughts and ideas that we've been having that may have not necessarily made it in our other episodes, actually.
Sure. Oh, and we do want to do one piece of housekeeping real quick. After this episode, we will be off for a week, just due to timeline constraints and ability to actually get an episode produced. So after this, there will be a 1 week pause, and then I believe we're going to pick up the rest of season 2 of Discovery at that point.
Yep, that's the plan.
Yep, so that is what we're going to be doing. So to start this off, I kind of wanted to do a quick timeline of Star Trek and where everything fits into the TV shows, okay?
Yep.
All right, so Enterprise happens in 2151 through 2154, and for our purposes, it happens basically exactly as we see it on screen in both the Prime timeline and the Kelvin universe.
That's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. The episode The Cage then happens in 2254, so about 100 years later. The next thing in the timeline, as far as chronologically, would be Discovery Seasons 1 and 2, which happened in 2256 and run up through 2258. So Discovery Season 1 basically takes place 2 years after The Cage, according to this timeline that I got from Memory Alpha.
Yeah.
And for the most part, Memory Alpha is pretty solid with their times and dates, so I tend to trust them. Strange New Worlds then starts Season 1 in 2259, and from our discussions, we both seem to put this in a second 5-year mission.
Yeah, because if you recall, Discovery Seasons 1 and 2, or at least Discovery Season 1 happens during the Klingon War, and then when Pike takes command of Discovery in Season 2, he says, basically, we had to sit out the Klingon War. So, yeah, I would be comfortable saying that Strange New World Season 1 occurs during their second 5-year mission. Yeah,
that's the way it kind of feels. So then the original series would then take place from 2265 to 2269. In the episode Menagerie, Spock says that he served with Captain Pike for 11 years, X months, and Y number of days. If we go from 2254 to 2265, we have our 11 years.
Yeah. And we should be clear here, TOS, the dating system had not been super...
No, not accurate at all.
Yes.
Again, as you pointed out in Star Trek it could have been anywhere from 1999 to 2999. And even their dating system, star dates, were meant to be confusing.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, like, we really didn't get a solid answer on how the star dates worked until the Next Generation.
We didn't even get an explanation. They just actually had a way of putting them together that we didn't have before.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, and then the Kelvin verse is the first one that actually just took and went like reverse numeral with it, and like your star date 2254 meant you were in the year 2254, and then your .0 was your day and time. So they were the first ones to do that. Now, here is the first little bit of controversial stuff we will hit. The animated series, if taken as canon, would go from 2269 to 2270, basically rounding out the last 2 years of the 5-year mission.
Yeah.
I do not take it as canon.
I've not seen anybody that actually takes the animated series as canon, so I don't think you would be alone in that.
Yeah, there's one author in Southern California, and Aaron is his first name. I can't think of his last name. He's a pretty big animated series fan, and he's got a whole book out about how it fits in and the whole history of it. I bet you he takes it as canon. And I saw a bunch of people complaining about Robert April being a black man, so I believe they take it as canon, and that Robert April should have shown up as an animated white man, or it does not fit canon. So, that is the animated area, should you want to accept it. I do not. I just want to say force field belts and holodecks. The TOS films. Now, this gets a little tricky. These take place somewhere from 2271 to 2293. The problem is Star Trek the Motion Picture has about a 10-year period where it could have taken place. And they're not real strict on where it fits in there. And there could have been a 5-year mission or two before or after it. They leave a lot of wiggle room in that one. Then the Next Generation starts in 2364 and runs to 2370. During that same time period, Deep Space Nine runs from 2369 to 2375. And also during that period, the Voyager gets lost in the Delta Quadrant, and that show runs in the 2371 to 2378 area.
Now, I just want to say this.
Yes.
Out of all the Star Trek shows I have not watched, so we're talking about Enterprise, we're talking about Deep Space Nine, and we're talking about Voyager. Voyager is probably the only one where I'd be really interested in watching it, honestly. Enterprise, the very few things I've seen from the Enterprise, especially the last episode, I talked about the fact that I watched their one mirror episode, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine, the only episode I really watched from that was the Trouble with Tribbles crossover episode.
That's at least a fun episode, yeah.
No, it is. It's really great. The problem I have with Deep Space Nine, and maybe this is just a me thing, is like I did not want to watch a whole Star Trek show based around staying on a space station. Now, it could be that there's some things I'm missing about this show, but it just didn't seem interesting to me. But Voyager is one that I probably should get around to seeing. And also Picard, to be fair.
Yeah. I think this next season 3 of Picard, I think, is going to be the one that is the must-see out of the bunch, because it's supposed to be the goodbye Next Generation. It's supposed to be the sign-off, so. Yeah. I never got into Deep Space Nine or Voyager. I tried to give Enterprise a few chances several times, and it was very much of its time, and everything in the early 2000s was completely based around terrorism. And
and they didn't even do a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, they tried 2 or 3 different ways to talk about it, and it just didn't really work.
Again, though, like, not to go back to Battlestar again, but I think Battlestar handled it correctly.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my problems with Deep Space Nine was I loved Babylon 5. And so I tried to watch Deep Space Nine after having just watched some Babylon 5, even though Babylon 5 was a much lower budget, much smaller production. But the J. Michael Straczynski, his show was so well put together that you put on Deep Space Nine and you're like, so it's just kind of Babylon 5 again,
The little bit that I did see of Deep Space Nine, it seemed like they were always like on the heels of sci-fi and just not quite getting there.
Yeah, I guess everybody I've talked to, I guess the last 4 or 5 seasons, it's a big war story. And it gets really good from everybody I've talked to. Some people have even called it the best Star Trek. I just haven't quite gotten to it.
Well, maybe, after we finish up Discovery, maybe we should pick one of these other shows and start plowing through them
Maybe we could, instead, because there's so many episodes, maybe what we would do is like a seasonal recap.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, that's an idea.
Something like that. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, and then, of course, we can't leave out the very important and canonically integrated Lower Decks. Takes place
Possibly.
in 2380.
Now, to be fair,
Yes.
aside from Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks is probably my favorite Star Trek show to date. I mean, granted, I love TOS. I really especially love TNG because that came out during my lifetime, but Lower Decks is probably my number 2. But as we said as I said in the Gorn episode last week, it's real hard to take what they say in there as canon.
And that's the thing. It's so hard to do, but that show is so Star Trek. Like that, everybody that works on that show loves Star Trek, and it comes through.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. Speaking of Lower Decks here, we have given Strange New Worlds so much crap about taking the references to the nth degree. That's not a problem with Lower Decks because it's animated. Like, I expect to get, like, an episode chock full of references to everything else. So it's not a problem.
Right.
But in Strange New Worlds, it feels like they're just, I don't know, man. They try too hard to insert those references where maybe they don't need to be for the most part. But in Lower Decks, like, it's completely welcome.
Yeah, well, and that's, because I mean, that's what it's based on. But it is hard to take the comedy episodes and then, the comedy show and go like, oh, yeah, that totally fits with everything else, I can totally see Rutherford being eaten at a Gorn wedding.
Yeah,
I am really looking forward to Boimler and Mariner showing up on Strange New Worlds. However, that's going to work out next season.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, man.
I'm so nervous about it that it makes me want to see it more.
I hope they do it like you do it, like you said. I don't remember what episode you said it in, but basically taking their real world actors and putting them into Strange New Worlds. I think that would be the greatest thing to do, especially because, like you said before, their actors look like their characters.
Yeah, and I believe that's what they've said they're going to do. I'm pretty sure they've said that's what they're doing. Yeah,
because it'd be real weird to have them have like an animated version of Strange New Worlds. I mean, I'm not opposed to it because, again, Paramount has steered us right for this long now.
Yep.
So I feel like even if they went that route, they'd do it well. But I'd really rather see them do some live action stuff with some of those characters. So I'm looking forward to however it happens.
Yeah. I just hope they don't do what they did on Enterprise and have this turn out to be them watching it on a holodeck or something. I don't want to see that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Menagerie did something similar. I mean, you're not watching it on a holodeck, but you're watching basically the cage on a view screen.
Oh, that's true. But basically the way I took the end of Enterprise was that the entire show was Commander Riker watching the historical records on the holodeck. And I kind of
that's the way it ended.
Yes, and I kind of like raspberried at the screen. You remember like Franklin in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he's mad at everybody for going upstairs, and he can't get his wheelchair up there, and he starts raspberrying at the air. That's what I was doing at the TV screen. So some of the reasons people claim that I have seen people claim that Strange New Worlds isn't in the Prime universe include things like, hey, the ships are just too different. And that would be the Discovery and the Enterprise. Another one I've seen is that they don't think that Spock and T'Pring's relationship matches to Amok Time, but I think...
let's take these one at a time.
Yeah, okay.
So you said the first one was that the ships don't jive.
Yeah.
But basically, if you consider that Discovery, that was already like at least the feeling I get from Discovery was that with the spore drive and all that stuff, that was an experimental ship.
Yes.
It still kind of looked like a Constitution class. The general layout's the same. Obviously, it's not a Constitution class, but the general layout is like a Star Trek ship.
Yes.
It was super, super, super secret squirrel stuff. And that's why you didn't see any more about the spore drive. For one, because they had it on this ship, and then suddenly the ship didn't exist anymore in the timeline. At least, not to the point to where Starfleet could have said, "Okay, this is working well. Let's make more ships like this."
Right. They
disappeared at the end of season 2. So I don't really think that. I don't really think that's a good argument for.
No,
at least Discovery being outside of the Prime timeline. That's a dumb reasoning.
No, I agree with you 100% there because, people took that first season. Now, look, I get some of the arguments that people were making. Okay, so the spore drive, we've never heard of a spore drive before. Well, they cleared that up.
Yep.
And holographic projectors, which actually they were supposed to have in the motion picture. They just didn't do it. But even that got cleared up by having Control take over everything and use the holographic imaging against everybody, and then Pike having it ripped out of the Enterprise. That takes care of that. But I can get some of that because you're like, okay, none of that technology was ever really used. Okay, that's all been kind of taken care of, though. So I would say you had a point until they took care of it.
I mean, plus, this is a seemingly experimental technology. Mm-hmm. Starfleet saw it work for, I don't know, a year or two, and then the ship disappeared. They had no way of knowing whether the spore drive had anything to do with the disappearance or the destruction, however you want to say it, officially, unofficially, whatever.
Sure.
And in my mind, given what I know about current military stuff, that makes sense to me. Basically, they were like, hey, man, we don't know if the spore drive contributed to this, so we're just going to back away from it. We got warp capability. That's good enough. We're not going to continue to invest in this spore drive technology because at this point, we only have 2 years of data. It's not proven. So we're going to go ahead and scrap the program.
Yeah.
That's not out of the ordinary for me.
No, I was going to say, because now they have two ships, actually. You remember there was the Glenn that got stuck halfway in and out of the mycelial network.
Oh, yeah. So, of course, then the only other example they have of the spore drive failed.
Yes. So, I mean, that that looks like a good reason to take that one off the counter to me,
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that at all. Not even a little bit.
Yeah. So that one gets done. I think one of the other reasons that people try to push that on Strange New World is they are so desperate for Discovery to not be Prime Universe that anything it even kind of rubbed elbows with, they want taken out,
No, and to be fair, I do understand the Strange New Worlds thing because, like we have talked over and over again, they skirt right up next to going outside of canon without crossing that line. They skirt right up next to it. But like I said in a previous episode, you and me have these conversations all the time, and they get cut out because at the end of it, I'm like, well, nah, they didn't violate any canon here, even though I super think they did. But when you really think about it, they have not.
No, because I've done that a few times where I'm like, that's wrong. And then I go look it up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, so we always assumed that this happened, but that's not what happened. Yeah. We just kind of guessed that this is what was going on. Well, and this is going to be one of those things here is the relationship with T'Pring. Everybody's under the assumption that she and Spock didn't see each other from the time they were children until this.
So I responded, and I may have my timeline off on this. I don't think but I don't think I'm wrong. So somebody else brought that up in the Facebook group, and I was basically like, I think where the confusion comes in with the whole T'Pring thing is that in Amok Time, Spock says, we hadn't seen each other in a long time. But then in another conversation, he says, we have been basically betrothed to each other since we were kids. And I think they combine those two statements to mean we haven't seen each other since we were kids.
I think you're correct because it's basically two different clauses of we are engaged and we've been engaged since we were children. And then people go, oh, they haven't been around each other since then. There are other things about their relationship that they're going to have to work to make fit with the rest of canon. Like why doesn't Christine Chapel know about her? Or, did somebody have their memories screwed with at some point? But
watching Amok Time, I don't get the sense that Chapel doesn't know about her. Now, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've seen it. But the only other person that I would say that has any fight in this conversation is Uhura. Mm-hmm. However, Uhura has not physically seen her in Strange New Worlds yet. So when Uhura in the original series sees her on screen for the first time or in person, I don't remember if it was on screen or in person, but she remarks how beautiful she is. In Strange New Worlds, Uhura has not seen her in person yet.
Okay. Well, that makes a big difference then, yeah.
Yeah, and as far as Chapel goes, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain in TOS, Chapel does not make any remarks as to whether she knew about her or not.
Okay.
So there's some ambiguity there.
Sure, and I haven't watched Amok Time in a long time. I think me and my kids rewatched everything about 10 years ago or something, you know.
Same. Yeah, it's been probably about that long since me and one of my kids watched it too.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, those are like the main ones I could come up with. I don't think there's any room yet to really say, oh, you know what, I did see one where like, well, they've never said that Sam Kirk served on the Enterprise.
Well, they didn't say he didn't.
I never said that Abraham Lincoln was my roommate, but I didn't say he wasn't, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I still think it was a little bit ham-handed to bring him into the Enterprise, but I think the same thing about Lon.
Yeah,
too, so.
yeah. There's, I've got questions about both, but you know what? I'm going to give it to him because so far I'm kind of liking them. I'm kind of liking both characters, you know?
Well, and plus, again, with both of those, they skirt right up against the line, but they, as far as I understand it, they have not crossed it yet.
Nope, I have to give it to him 100%. And, you know, now that we've seen Equality of Mercy, Sam Kirk actually has an important piece in there where he's a guy that kind of warms Pike up to James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a piece in there that works, you know.
Well, and again, the whole episode is based around the fact that why would Pike give up his command for Kirk when he didn't really know him? Well, this episode shows you why Pike would have done that without, quote unquote, knowing him, because actually he did know him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that Kirk did not know Pike.
Right. And which is, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you put those things together, it's actually kind of a cool little turn of events.
Yeah, that was I mean, I said this in the episode. I think that's one of my favorite Strange New Worlds episodes right now. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah,
really well done.
I really, really enjoyed that one. I've seen it multiple times already. I've enjoyed that episode quite a bit. We're going to move on to the Kelvin timeline now, or the JJ verse, as it is also known.
Oh, yeah, where Thor is Kirk's dad.
Yep, where Thor and, let's see here.
Dr. Cameron.
Oh, yeah.
God, that was so well done, dude. That first Kelvin movie, so well done. I was, like, super stoked because, like, I was like, okay, the canon is upturned, and it makes sense why it is. They could go anywhere from here. Khan.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That first movie was so good.
It looked great. The only thing I had a problem with was them constantly coming back to him hanging by his fingertips. I got the metaphor. You know, I got it the last 2 times you did it.
Well, I mean, that was a thing back then, I think. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of movies featured action sequences like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that first Star Trek movie, and also if you do or did watch the animated series, and there was the episode about Spock who goes back into his own past, and a lot of the scenes that they used in 09 were hinted at or shown in a version in this animated episode. So that was kind of cool to see them use that, you know.
Yeah.
But the first one I got to blow a hole right in the water with is in the JJ verse. Kirk takes command of the Enterprise in 2258.
Yeah. So, a little bit earlier.
Yeah, a little ahead of schedule. So that means we move everything up about 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, but it's irrelevant because as soon as Nero comes back, everything forward means nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
So, no issues for me there.
Oh, no, I just mean, like, why couldn't Strange New Worlds be in the JJ verse? Well, there you go. Because it's 2258 and Pike is in command of the Enterprise.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's in command of Discovery in 2258, but yeah, he runs right back to the Enterprise. Yeah. I guess he's still commander of the Enterprise. It's just going through a super big overhaul.
Yeah, it's just being rebuilt.
Where, you know, they're stretching out people's quarters to make them like a conference room big.
Yeah.
Putting, basically a full 21st century kitchen in there.
Yeah, I still have a little trouble with. I work overtime to try to get those to work in my head.
Well, it could have been a preference of Pike himself.
Could have been.
As much as he likes to cook, it could just be, hey, this is how I want my quarters set up.
Well,
Give me
it could be because they
Yeah.
were going out of their way to try to get him back in there, and he might have been like, "Hey, Bob, if I go, I'm going to need fireplaces and some mid-century modern furniture and a full kitchen."
And a full conference room in there.
And I'm going to need to be able to turn all the windows into pastoral scenes of the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing was, so alternate Kirk, which is the one I'm going to use for the Equality of Mercy. Alternate Kirk tells Pike that his father was first officer on the Kelvin before they moved to Tarsus 4. Obviously, in the Kelvin verse, they never made it to Tarsus 4 because George Kirk was dead.
Yeah.
So that would have knocked that one out. And then my most telling thing here is Spock quite literally calls it the prime timeline.
Inequality of Mercy, yeah.
Yeah, he references the actual timeline as the prime timeline.
Oh, I really enjoyed that remark. He was like, well, a captain in another timeline would have done this different, or, another captain in the prime timeline would have done this different.
Yeah. Oh, one I forgot to even put here in my notes, the jump cut. Okay, you remember, I don't remember the name of the episode, but where they redid Talos 4 in Discovery, and they do a literal jump cut from Jeffrey Hunter to Anson Mounts Pike.
Yeah.
And they literally they cut from one to the other, and it's like, okay, this is the same guy in the same universe in the same story.
Yeah, if Strange New Worlds does not end redoing those scenes with Anson Mount, I'm gonna be upset.
Yeah. I can see some of that.
Like, you don't have to redo the whole menagerie or the whole cage, but I need to see those similar scenes with Anson Mount going back to Talos 4.
Yeah, that would be kind of... Yeah, I think that would be the proper way to do it. You do a handoff to Kirk, and then like a fast forward however many years, and then, being left at Talos 4.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, just so we get... Yeah, however it's done, but just so we get it's wrapped up.
Yeah, if they don't end it like that, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. So, that covers why it can't be in the Kelvin verse. Did you have any thoughts or comments on that?
No, I think it's pretty obvious why it can't be in the Kelvin verse.
Yeah. And then I've got my own headcanon for dealing with some discrepancies. Mm-hmm. And very first, even back when this happened, when I watched the movie First Contact and the Borg went into the past, I assumed that anything that happened after that point in the story was going to be kind of a soft reboot. So what I have here at the start of my notes is post-Enterprise time travel hijinks. Because what happened in the show Enterprise wasn't exactly what had happened before the Borg went into the past. So there was a story there, and that it led up to the Star Trek universe, and then the Borg went in the past, and then now this happens that leads up to the Star Trek universe. So there's going to, by nature, be small changes, especially when they created the stupid idea of the temporal Cold War. And if I remember right, there was an actual line where one of the time agents from the 30th century says, like, oh, that's not how that happened originally. Which, as soon as you start doing that, man, you've got butterfly effect in time travel, and nothing is safe.
Well, like you said, though, the end of Enterprise is basically Riker watching all this stuff through the holodeck or however he's watching it. So he may have got, like, the real record, but if the Borg went back before that and changed a bunch of stuff, that wouldn't affect what Riker was watching.
Oh, yeah, because it would happen in an earlier... God, I hate time travel so much. So very, very much.
That's why I'm not a fan of when this happens.
Yeah.
That's why I was not a fan of the MCU going through the multiverse and stuff. I was like, dude, you saw how it affected the comic books. It is not a cool thing to have to keep up with all this. Your writers can't keep up with all of it. Mm-hmm. We can't keep up with all of it. Like, just don't do it.
I end up screaming at the screen. I'm just like, didn't you watch Terminator? Have you seen what happens?
I mean, luckily the MCU has thus far it's not been a problem, but in the comic books, it's super, super bad.
It's all sorts of janky over there. Oh, yeah. So I just, in my head, I leave a little bit of room for time travel hijinks to have altered what we know as a Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
Also, they've always made an effort to say, like, the records of the 21st century are really spotty. So the fact that they're kind of iffy about when Khan was now, well, they've kind of built that in.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
No, I'm pretty good with it. I mean, overall, I'm pretty good with this show. You know, I mean, I think it feels like an actual Star Trek TV series.
Set in modern, like done in modern times, so we get the nice visuals.
Yeah,
but like really, and I said this at the end of the season of Strange New Worlds. I wish they would start doing more of the same like music stuff in the background, because I thought that last episode, man, like with the TOS reminiscent music, and then even some of the shots were very similar as far as the lighting. I really think they should do more of that.
Oh, I would love it if they would. They don't even have to do it every episode. Just pull it out on special occasions.
Yeah. And to be fair, that last episode was a special occasion.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you're right. I wish they would do it a little bit more. Yeah, they don't have to be heavy-handed with it, but do a little bit more often than they have been, for sure.
When they pull out that fight theme for Amok Spock, that was great. And then, like you were saying there, in Quality of Mercy, just all the little nods to Balance of Terror. From cue music to the shots to that, just with your eyeball lighting where everything is dark except that band right across the eyes. That
whole episode was super good.
Yeah, it really was. This one doesn't quite hold it up real well, but I did want to just kind of randomly go grab something off of the Facebook group that we both belong to, which I believe is just called Strange New Worlds.
Yep. I need to make sure my name is representative of what my name is on here when I talk in there.
Yeah, your actual birth name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris Noonian Singh, that one.
Exactly, yeah. So I grabbed this little thing from Lee here because I thought it was demonstrative of somebody not quite knowing where things went or how things fit together, but also just being a fan of the series. So Lee here says, probably going to be an unpopular theory, but given that the Enterprise is larger than the TOS one, which I don't know is the case. I have not seen what the dimensions are, but I do know the crew number is right. Yeah,
so Pike's crew is 200-ish, maybe a little bit more. Kirk's crew is 400-ish. And if you go through a large enough overhaul, you could make those spaces smaller to fit more people in. Already, like, the actual dimensions have not changed between TOS and Strange New Worlds. The crew has changed, which would necessitate smaller spaces in TOS.
No kitchens in your private quarters kind of thing.
Nope.
But yeah, so I don't know that there was an actual size change, but we'll keep an eye out. There could be. I mean, who knows? We've seen at least one ship that is, quote unquote, made with Constitution parts, but is made out not to be a Constitution class. We actually covered that a little bit, so.
We covered that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, that was like at least a 10-minute conversation, at least. It was probably more than that, but he's talking about, and I forget the ship name, but it's it looks the same, but it's significantly smaller. Like, obviously smaller.
The Peregrine in the Sombra class. And its crew is like half as many. And then you were saying that, like, even in the modern Navy now, you might have two ships that look alike or look really close, but one may have twice as many engines as the other.
Yeah, so like I was saying, the Enterprise, the actual Navy Enterprise is decommissioned now, but it had 4 nuclear reactors. The next class of ship is the Nunes Class. They only have 2, but if you put them side by side, the Nimitz Class is a little bit smaller, but they still kind of have the same general feel and look to them, at least on the outside. So, yeah, I have no problems with a class of ship that looks like a Constitution class but is smaller. So, yeah, even in our modern Navy, like, that's not unheard of. So I don't have any problems with it because you're going to have a lot of the same systems a lot of parts that are used on the Nunes Class could go back and be used on the Enterprise, depending on what system it is and how new or old it is. So, again, I have no problems with a ship that kind of looks like a Constitution class, but is smaller. So, no issues there at all.
Yeah. So, he's saying may not to not be a Constitution class. Then has to point out, TOS said that all 12 active starships were Constitution class. It's not quite what was said, but okay.
Well, it could just be all the, let's search out new civilizations and strange new worlds. Those are all Constitution class, fine. But the Federation has more than just,
heavy cruisers or whatever, yeah.
Well, they're going to have more than just, research vessels, which the Constitution class kind of is. So I don't have any problem with any of this, even though this guy does.
Yeah. No, it's one of those canards you see everybody throw out,
Well, because like you said, they want so bad.
Yeah.
for new things to not be part of the timeline because, they're nostalgic for something that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just it. Like, I think I know everything about Star Trek. I can tell you right now I don't.
No, because every time you watch an episode, it's like, oh, man. Yep. Especially when you put it in context with the rest of everything else you know. Like, you're always going to come up with something like some line or some stat that you didn't even think about before because it wasn't an issue then when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm assuming can we not just say this is an alternate universe Trek and Pike never loses command of the Enterprise and Kirk goes on to command the Defiant or something?
You could until that last episode of Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You may have been able to pull that wool over your own eyes until that episode, and that episode makes it explicitly clear that what you see in that episode is like a what if type thing.
Yep.
What if Pike never loses command of the Enterprise? Well, it's a problem for the future because Kirk has to be in command of the Enterprise for the future to be okay.
Yeah. I'm going to try to hold on to a thought real quick just so I can finish Lee's statement here. Not since Picard have I warmed it so to a male captain. I'd even say Pike is becoming more of a fave of mine than Jean-Luc, and he's managed it in so very few episodes. Other genres are dallying in the multiverse. Why can't Trek?
They did. It was called the JJ verse. Calm it down.
Yeah. It's true they have, and I'm sure they will, and they will continue to, because they did a little bit here with, Quality of Mercy. They have done the mirror episodes. Alternate universes are definitely a thing within Trek.
Oh, yeah, I cannot wait until Strange New Worlds does a mirror episode. I think that's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I don't know.
They have to. No, you have to do a mirror episode.
They never did on Next Gen.
Well, I can't speak for that, but they have to.
Yeah.
Like, don't not do it, please.
I've got a whole bunch of fan art where I did Next Gen mirror episode stuff about 15 years ago, but that's just between us. So yeah, why can't they? Well, they have, and they'll continue to. And if Chris has his way, we'll even get the Mirror Strange New Worlds episode. One of the things now that we've talked about, if Pike finds a way out, Spock dies, right? Spock dies of radiation poisoning. And then he realizes, like, oh, if I don't go, then Spock takes my place here. Well, Spock dies of radiation poisoning anyways, even though we tend to forget that he was actually dead between Star Trek 2 and 3.
Yeah, but if you don't have Kirk taking over command of the Enterprise, then you don't get a search for Spock.
Nobody would have stolen the Enterprise to go get him.
Yeah.
Because in Pike, there is no way Pike would have stolen a ship for any reason.
Well, I mean, there might have been, but the situation was not set up the same. So, yeah, you're right. There's no way Pike would have done it, but at the same time, the situations were totally different between when Spock died at the end of Wrath of Khan versus when he died when Pike was in command in Equality of Mercy. So the situations were totally different.
Yep, but they were going to happen regardless.
Yes.
It's just in one, Spock quite literally takes Pike's place. In the other, it happens there, but you have Jim Kirk in charge of the Enterprise again to do something Pike wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell on that thought the other day, and I'm like, wow, it really fits nicely. Because, look, Kirk was very by the book. People forget this. He wasn't just like some womanizer or fly by the seat of your pants guy.
He was a womanizer, but you're right. He did do his best to stick by the rules of the game. And actually, I would argue, in some cases, Pike was even more willing to go against the book than Kirk. In some cases.
Depending on what it was, like when he was ready to assault the Starfleet security officer for Una, and I mean, no, you're right. There are definitely things there.
Well, no, if you go back to Discovery Season 2, that whole situation with the chapel of the Red Angel, wherever it was,
that's right.
Like
I was thinking about that.
Now, we can't know how Kirk would have dealt with that, but I think Kirk was generally just as much a Boy Scout as Pike was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that kind of gets lost on Kirk, is that technically Pike and Kirk were all built on the same character template. I mean, they're the same person, basically, to a certain degree.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, they're both these, Boy Scout, Horatio Hornblower, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, and to be fair, Pike is still a womanizer.
I think Pike might be swinging a little heavier lead pipe around than Kirk did, honestly.
I don't know. There was a lot of episodes where Kirk was just willing to... Well, you know what? Maybe my JJ verse idea of Kirk is clouding my judgment here.
Yeah, because I think we all have that kind of like backwards look at Kirk. Because by the time the movies come out, we definitely play it up.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair.
Definitely by the time the JJ verse starts, and he's waking up with 3 cat chicks in his bed or whatever. But you gotta remember, on TOS, there's like 1 or 2 more times where he talks to a girl, they kiss, and the next thing he's putting his boots on the edge of the bed. I remember watching that as a kid going, oh, so that's shorthand for, okay, I gotcha. That's how you said that in the 60s. So now when I watch cowboy movies and anybody puts on a boot, I'm like, oh, they just did it. Oh, man. I cracked myself up. So that's kind of basically where we're at. I mean, Strange New Worlds obviously takes place in the Prime Universe. It takes place during the time span that we haven't fit in here from 2259, and we assume up to 2265.
Yeah.
I don't really see any reason to believe anything otherwise, or anything's askew from that. So
no, I mean, look, man, I've again, and we've cut out a lot of this conversation that me and you have had about canon and where Strange New Worlds fits. But every time, there's a reason why you don't never hear it from us, because I get to the end, I'm like, wait a second. I even did that in the Gorn episode last week, where I was like, the whole episode I wanted to show how much different the Gorn was, but given our conversation, I talked myself out of the fact that they don't jive together, but they kind of do, sort of, given what we've seen and what we've heard from various other shows. But yeah, there's a reason why I cut out all those conversations. Because at the end of it, I'm like, wait a second, they actually have run right up to it, but have not crossed it.
Yet again. Right to the line, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, all right. So, Chris, anything else you want to point out before we wrap this one up?
No, man. I mean, the only thing that I would have had to say anything about, I think I said last week in our Gorn episode, I'm still, La'an is still a question mark to me. There's a lot of places they could take her character as far as whether she deals more with the Gorn or more with the, Noonien Singh family line. But as of right now, man, I can't think of a whole lot to say about it,
No, I really can't. I'm sure there's little nitpicks or something hanging out there, but I don't know what they are. I really enjoyed this first season of this show, and I can't wait for more. And once again, guys, we are going to take a week off, and then we'll be back to finish up season 2 of Discovery to get through the rest of Pike's time on that ship.
Yep.
All right, Chris, where are we headed next week? No, where are we headed in 2 weeks? Sorry.
Well, the next episode of Discovery begins in a windy city. Burnham and a stubborn hybrid man are attracted to each other, but he owes a lot of money to a mutated alien. In the end, they go to another galaxy together. That's not different from the end of season 2, but here we are.
Yeah, that's all right. We've got it there. All right, so that sounds like an exciting episode. I can't wait to see it. All right, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or theories you want to run by us, hit us up at our website, strangenewtrekshow.com, or follow the links in the show notes for this episode in your podcast app of choice. Please rate and review / like and subscribe to us wherever you listen to us. It's one small step for you, but a giant leap for the show. Special thanks to Miguel Esparza for the Strange New Trek theme, and to Will Harding for all of his hard work over in the YouTube department. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to set your phasers to stun, and join us next time when we're on to the next planet of the week.